Hello, BookTube. This is Alan here for Friday Reads. This is a good week for me in reading. I got a notice on Saturday from C-SPAN Book TV on YouTube and also Instagram that they were going to do an in-depth program with author and Harvard professor Jill Lepore. She's the author of the newest book called If Then, and then she wrote These Truths, which was shortlisted for the Cundell Prize last year, and she wrote The Secret History of Wonder Woman, and she has written a book about Benjamin Franklin's sister. So she was on, and I got to watch the interview on Monday. It's a 2-hour program. And there was also a call-in show, and Jill Lepore mentioned the fact the moderator of the program interviewer would ask her Jill Lepore a question, and Jill Lepore would sit there and talk for about 10-15 minutes answering the question. She does all the research herself, as she noted, and she talked about how she did research for If Then. She also talked about how she did research for these the strange history of Wonder Woman, and about these truths. For these truths, she said that she went to the Harvard Library from her office, checked out 50 books, went back to her office, and labeled it Chapter 1. And she did that for each chapter. She go, this is Chapter 2. And she did the research herself for each book. But she was asked at the very beginning of the program, and I'll try to leave a link down below. It's on C-SPAN 2. It's on Book TV, and they also have a not only the video part but a written part of it. And she was asked very early on by the interviewer about if this time in history can be compared to another time in history, like the COVID-19, this pandemic we're going through. A lot of people, well, reporters and historians, and some people are comparing this COVID-19 pandemic to the Spanish flu back in 1919. Well, Jill Lepore said she doesn't do that. She's an historian, and she goes with knowledge. And she said we have a cognitive tendency to enjoy analyses to find one thing to be like another all the time. For instance, a baby is born. Someone would have automatically say, "Oh, doesn't the baby look like, you know, the grandmother, or has somebody's eyes, or things of this nature?" And that is easily to do, and it makes it easy for Jill Lepore said it makes it easy for journalists, for some historians to come up with this comparison. For instance, I was watching Sandy Steadfast channel, and he was talking about a book about the history of South Africa, where the writer compared the Zulu warriors to the Hitler Youth, and so he said it's easy to do that. It's easy to write, to be not especially useful, and think in this era, because you can contain the chaos that isn't helpful, because it's a way to avoid confronting what is totally strange about the moment. And so that it was an extremely very good interview. And so what I'm reading for the Victober is still going through R.D. Blackmore's Lorna Doone, and I got to about 100 pages left. I should be finished this weekend with this, and I'll go on to Moonstone by Wiki Collins. But this has gotten to the part where the main character, our narrator of the story, John Ridd, has fallen in love with Lorna Doone, and they started a romance. The Doones in the village are notorious. They are, they cheat, steal, lie, and deceitful, and trying to, and John Reed's trying to get away from the family. But another thing is that the Doones are also Catholic, and John Reed is Protestant. So, in order to convert her to away from the papist, Lorna Doone has to be into this room where she has to recite the Lord's Prayer 3 times backwards. Yeah. Yeah. The Roman Catholics do that. It sort of reminds me, the Catholic and Protestant reminds me of the Graham Masterson story, in which he wrote this story about a dual London, and there's a phrase in the book in which the way you go to the second London is by jumping over a candlestick, and that comes from the nursery rhyme, Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, jumped over the candlestick, and that has to deal with the Jacobins of the Roman Catholic Church. They were called the Jacobins, and so they had to jump over the candlestick, and that way the person got over to the second London. So it was a very good story. I also read a short book on my NetGalley account it was actually an archive book that came out last year, and so I requested it, and I got it, and so it was it was called Just North of Nothing by Ian Farnsworth. There's the part of the John Fogum Mysteries, is volume 7, and it's John Fogum is a Boston private investigator. His war buddy asked him to come provide security analysis for a preserve called the Mount Burrow Preserve in Nothing, Arizona. So what he finds out is that it's actually an undercover front. It's a front for a terrorist organization that is holding weapons of mass destruction. They intend to blow up the United States. Hope they start with Congress. Anyway, you have it was fast-paced, original story, and the characters are good. The main problem is that the book is too short. It's only about 156 pages. Some of it could have been drawn out, and it would have been better, but it's a very short read. I'm also reading my NetGalley account, the Last American Aristocrat, biography of Henry Adams. About a quarter of the way through that. That one is due Let me check here just a minute, sorry. That one is due on the 20, comes out on 22nd of November, 2 days after my birthday. Just throw that in there. And I'm wondering, trying to find out who wrote that. Because the guy's has written several biographies. I think it was David Brown. See if I can find that. Yeah, David Brown. He's written several biographies, and this one comes out and published by Scribner, and it's about Henry Adams, the last American aristocrat. On my NetGalley account, I had put in a request for about 11 books. I've been, excuse me, I got 9 books, and majority of them are not due until next year. One is which comes out on the 19th of January. It's called The Crown in Crisis. It has to do with the abdication of King Edward VII. I believe that's correct, where he left the throne to marry Simpson lady. So I have a couple more coming out. The Book Collectors, I need to read that because it comes out the 3rd of November. That's about a group of boys in Iraq or Syria. I'm not sure about that at the moment. But yeah, I'm really enjoying these, and it's all on ebook. So, and it's interesting if you put the audio version on the ebook, the narrated, and it was funny because I was listening to an Uber. I caught an Uber driver, and he had the little things where, you know, where the message would tell the person to turn right or turn left or go down the street, go down this freeway. And that was the same voice that is used in the audio portion of the books that I got. It's kind of annoying. I'm also, I read chapter 4 in Auskrieg, Hitler's War of Extermination in the East by Stephen Fritz. Chapter 4 is called Whirlwind, and the author takes you away from the continuing battle in Operation Barbarossa and takes you back to the Germany, in which the German population is becoming frustrated because the Soviets destroyed grain stocks before they were seized on Russian Wehrmacht, forced Germany authorities to reduce the food rations like July, and since the weekly meat ration for normal consumers had already been cut in early June, the second reduction was a disturbing blow for the population. Long memories of lean times of 1914 to 1918, and a leadership sensitive to the link between hunger and revolution. And most Germans, the summer of 1941 meant the end of good times of the 1930s, when the Nazis provided jobs and economic security, promoted social programs, and restored a sense of national pride. Already in late June, Goebbels said, food situation in Berlin is very bad, no potatoes, few vegetables. And by mid-August, fears of redemption of Jewish subversion of the Great War crept in, an increase of black market activities. Plus, you have the British continuing to bomb German cities. And also you had the Catholics. It's growing unease among German Catholics over Nazi actions against religion and handicap. Nor were the two concerns unrelated, although virtually all top Nazis believed that Christianity and National Socialism was incompatible. Hitler, for pragmatic reasons, desired the church question be left until after the war. Nonetheless, by 1941, party activists at local and regional levels have flamed passions by seeking to break the irksome power of the churches. You have they try to rein in the power of the Catholic Church by banning Catholic publications, and charity work was taken over by the National Socialist People's Workers Organization rather than the Catholic Church, and the closure of monasteries raised fears of a renewed state assault on Catholicism, while the action of Adolf Wagner and ordering all crucifixes to be removed from schoolrooms touched off a storm of protests. Some complained that father sons were fighting Bolshevism in the East. Nazi officials were attacking religion at home, while women wrote their husbands in Russia that they had better come home to fight Bolshevism here. The Bishop of Munster, Clemens August Graf von Kalen, was responsible for much of the Nazi discomfort. A deeply conservative, anti-communist individual, had intentionally welcomed the assault on the Soviet Union, Nazi actions against the Catholic Church, and persistent British bombing raids. However, caused him to deliver a series of sermons in July denouncing the Gestapo's suppression of religion. I believe at this time that the well-known person in Germany, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, came into being at this time. And so the Bishop of Munster wrote a letter to the Reich Chancellery. There was a secretly revealed attack on Hitler himself. His most infernal action came when in sermon he again condemned the attack on religion, then raised the explosive issue on euthanasia. And he then pointed out obvious implications. People become invalids, soldiers, civil rooms. Any opinion of Nazi officials would be unproductive. Who could the average German trust? Who would give the murderer the punishment he deserves? Goebbels didn't like the sermon, called it outrageous and provocative, and Galen's speech, in which he tied the war to murder, and none to suggest that bombing range were God's punishment on the unjust government, connecting too many dots, for there was indeed a connection between war and euthanasia. Now, the author talks about the eugenic program. Let me get my notes here. Eugenics program. Eugenics program was actually started in the United States by a gentleman by the name of Harry Longan, and end of the 19th century. They tried it in Indiana in 1910. It failed, but then it kind of snowballed to where the United States started a eugenics program, a sterilizing program for the protection and health of the state. This is brought out for the Supreme Court in 1927 in a case called Buckby versus Bell, in which Oliver Wendell Holmes gave permission to provide compulsory sterilization of the unfit. The Germans, during the Nuremberg trial, said that they took the idea of sterilization in euthanasia from this Holmes decision and the Supreme Court. I believe that this also led John Steinbeck to write Of Mice and Men, in which, Lenny, the character in Mice and Men, was killed just because he seemed to be just unfit. This has led thousands of people in the United States to be killed and thousands more to be sterilized because they were either too poor, black, and what have you. This eugenics program also led the Nazis to come up with an idea called T4 at their headquarters in Berlin and find a way to kill the German adult handicap, and many as 100,000 people had been murdered in euthanasia killing centers. Well, the protests were released after the bishop's speech. In fact, the Nazis felt constrained in moving against the bishop. In wartime, led Hitler to order in to the euthanasia program, but then there was still the Jews. They tried to find a way to, move the Jews to another location, out of Germany, out of Poland, somewhere else, but they could not find a way. Everything was blocked. So basically, they decided to come up with these concentration camps and have trains to move the Jews to the concentration camps. But the problem was, one person objected to it because you had trains. They had a shortage of trains. You had trains trying to go to Russia to provide supplies, much needed supplies and reserves to the units there. You had trains trying to go into Germany, trying to deliver the food and supplies there. And so you didn't have enough trains. So that's sort of the confusion. And of course, the rain started to come down in the Soviet Union in October. So in Russia, they say, Azurist Rusko Budia Dedovo Vedro Gusuyu. One drop makes the entire bucket of mud. So that's it for us, Greg. And I will be getting back to God's Crucible, Islam and the Making of Europe, 570 to 1215. Pretty soon. I just stopped for a moment on chapter 6, picking the pieces after Rome. I'll be going back to this. I'm kind of switching back and forth between God's Crucible and this one here. And after this one, Laura Dune, I'll be reading Moonstone by Vicky Collins. So, thank you very much for watching BookTube, and have a great weekend.